Well, hey there. You've stumbled upon the intersection of internet quandaries and psychological insight. Welcome to Veritas Views on AITA, where the quirks of the internet meet the expertise of Veritas Psychology Partners.
Thanks for joining us. I'm your host, Mike MacBride. I'm joined by our dynamic trio of psychologists.
Hi, I'm Dr. Gayle MacBride, and of course, I'm here with Dr. Daniel Kessler, but we have brought Dr. Bill Hoekstra back. He is trained in sleep work as well as trauma, and who knew he also has a forensic background. You can find him at the Mood and Sleep Clinic in his private practice, among some of his other interesting pursuits. Welcome, Bill.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
And again, I'm Dan Kessler. Gail and I run a Veritas Psychology Partners together. We're really happy that Bill was willing to come back for a second episode, an encore episode after our first one. And as I mentioned near the end of the first one, I was like, what?
He didn't go run
screaming. No, he didn't. Yeah, I thought, gosh, I'd go see this guy for therapy. Yeah. This is good. So I'm glad you were willing to come back and endure another episode with us. So thanks so much. Michael, you brought us a problem to resolve.
I did. Yes, I'm full of problems, apparently. Welcome all three of you. For any of the newbies out there, though, first, if you don't know what we're talking about, essentially what I've done is I've gone on the internet and I found somebody who had posted a scenario asking, who's the asshole here? And generally the readers help answer those questions. But in this case, we have three psychologists that are going to weigh in. It's not a professional opinion. It's just kind of like talking through some thoughts and ideas and that kind of thing. And where the post is specific, I've tried to make it a little more discreet. And if you're new, stick around through the end. We always have some kind of bonus conversation. Not sure what it'll be this time. We'll see. Okay, so the headline this time is, am I the asshole for refusing to give up my dog for my fiance's allergic daughter?
Wow. You've stunned three psychologists into silence. That is well-chosen conundrum. Thank you, Michael.
Sure. Excellent.
Yeah, these are so tough when there's a, without hearing any more, I'm going to go ahead and, jump in because I like to do that. There's so many problems where there isn't necessarily a clear, like many of our couples conflicts are those exact conflicts that don't have a absolute right or absolute wrong. Although perhaps we're going to hear something that's going to tell us it's an absolute right or wrong. So maybe I should let's hear the problem, Michael, before we render anything further.
For sure. Well, here are the details we got. The poster is 34 female, and she has a golden retriever. The dog has been with her for 7 years, and according to her, he's more than a pet. He's family. Her fiance is 37-year-old male, recently moved in with his 9-year-old daughter. The daughter is severely allergic to dogs, not the take Benadryl kind of you're fine kind of allergy. She actually breaks out in hives and has serious breathing issues. The fiance knew about Max from the beginning, and when they were dating, he swore the dog wouldn't be a problem because they didn't live with her at the time. But now that they've moved in, it's a constant issue. The daughter's allergies flare up anytime she's here, and now the fiance is demanding that she rehomes her dog for the daughter's safety. The poster has mentioned a number of different compromises, keeping the dog out of the stepdaughter's room, constant deep cleaning, investing in air purifiers, even boarding the dog part-time when the daughter is over. But none is good enough for the fiance. He says she needs to put the daughter first and get rid of the dog entirely. He also made it clear that if we don't, we might need to rethink the wedding. I told him flat out, I'm not rehoming the dog. I love all of them, but the dog is family and has been with her the longest. I'm not dumping him like an old piece of furniture. The fiance thinks she's being selfish and that she's not ready to be a stepmom. His family keeps piling on, saying that she's prioritizing the dog over a child, and now she's the villain. Her friends are split, and so she's coming to us saying, is she the asshole here for choosing the dog over the daughter?
So are we therapists first, or are we human beings first? So like
human beings first.
Says, run, don't walk. Yeah, that smacks of so much control and manipulation to me.
Yeah, I mean,
on
oh
behalf
my,
of the man moving in who knew she had the dog for so long and knew
right.
he had a daughter who was allergic.
And
Unless
it's
we're finding out that there's like a surprise allergy, but I don't think that's the case.
But I think what seems like the surprise in defense of the dad here is that the degree of the daughter's allergic reaction. Like, I think this is one of those situations where you don't know how difficult this is until you move in and you go, oh shit, this is really a problem.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's the problem of the OP. I mean, she had a home, it was stable. They want to move forward with their relationship because they have a wedding date. But this moving in prior to the wedding and then discovering the dog is a problem is not really a problem of OP. It's a problem of this dad.
Yeah.
And and I presume the daughter's only there part-time because she's got a biological mother somewhere else or another parent who's taking care of her the other portion of the time. And I think it's for her biological parents to decide what is the best option here. I mean, one option could be that she only visits during the day or she does spend less time at that house. And then I know that's
Mm,
kind of sucky and the dad doesn't want to give that up. There are
no.
just a lot of options, and to demand that someone get rid of a pet seems problematic. I'm not comfortable with that, especially because he's the one moving in. I feel like it would be different if we massaged these facts and flipped it around that she
Mhm.
and the dog moved into the dad's house.
Yeah.
I feel like that might be different. Hey, I need you to rehome the dog or
Hmm.
move back out. But
Hmm.
What's
this
the
setup is really problematic.
I agree.
Michael again? What's the level of the allergy as far as like, is this life threatening? Is it just like she gets a little sneezy? Like, what's the
She has breathing issues with relationship to it. It doesn't say life threatening, but it's not
but
some of the
it
Benadryl's happening
okay.
helping.
So it's
So
not it's not
I
like she sniffles a little bit and has a runny nose and moves on. It's like
It's a rash, though. Yeah.
this is a I mean, this is problematic, and I'm not ready to necessarily label dad here being manipulative or pushy. I'm gonna push back on both of my colleagues here a little bit and say that here's dad is very concerned about his daughter, and I think that sometimes like we think things aren't a big deal until we find out they are a big deal, and now they're a big deal, and this may be run don't walk, but for a different reason that sometimes we realize through no fault of our own that we're incompatible for some reason that's unrelated to the relationship. He
Mhm.
wants to have children and can't imagine life without children. And she
Yeah.
won't never wants to have children. Sometimes relationships don't work out for no fault of our own, but because there is something that makes create a basic incompatibility. And I'm not sure if the dog is that basic income fits that category or not. We certainly see that category in like one person desperately wants to have children and can't imagine life without children. The other person would absolutely never want to have children. There's not necessarily a compromise. You can't necessarily have kids part time. Um, and this is one of those ones where both people are saying this is not a compromise I can make.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, Now the question is like, so the internet started saying, and we're kind of saying, well, maybe one of them should.
Mhm.
No, I don't think one of them necessarily should make a compromise on this. I mean, you like kind of to your point, like maybe this isn't the right relationship for you because there are differences here. This isn't a right or wrong. I think we're really feeling stumped because, I mean, as a person, I would really struggle to rehome the dog and the amount of stress that it would cause on this dog in sort of the middle of its life. I suppose it's got, probably another half of its life to go, which is a long time to put a relationship on hold. So we
Mhm.
have some absolute non-negotiables on the table for this couple. And so to your point, Dan, maybe they're not the right couple to kind of proceed forward through kind of no fault of their own. What I do think is happening here that's a little bit problematic, and unfortunately it's one of those themes that we pick up on a lot of times, is this rom-com phenomenon, right? We're not
Mm.
having peaceful thorough conversations, we're kind of slinging out solutions and batting them away and going, fine, and kind of it feels like it's got a
Mhm.
bigger sort of drama feel that's going to fuel that
Yeah.
rom-com as opposed to having a really good, thoughtful conversation about these differences. And I suspect that the emotions are high because these two people probably do really love each other and
Mhm.
in another world with other circumstances maybe they'd make a really great couple going forward and they're really stuck on gosh this feels really big and we
Mhm.
don't know how to do this even though we have really intense and positive feelings otherwise.
I think part of the piece I was responding to initially was this weight that he was putting on the OP for bearing the burden of the problem. And so rather than looking at it dynamically, it was maybe you're not ready to be a stepmother, maybe blah, blah, blah. And so like for me, like those are really powerful black and white accusations to throw around. So, and again, what we don't know is like, what is the development of this? It would be hard for me to imagine that he didn't know that there was an allergy on board prior to them deciding to kind of cohabitate. And so I imagine the daughter's been to the house before. I just, for me, that felt really, I don't want to use gaslighting because that's a maybe a little overused term, but it felt really unfair that all of that shifted so abruptly.
Shit, Bill, I'm gonna, sorry, Gail.
I was going to say that fits with what I was saying though, those high emotions. Like I think we're throwing things out like, I think you're not fit to be a stepmom because that was, you know, that lacks that depth of conversation, and I like the way you put it, that bearing an unequal amount of weight and pressure on solving this.
I want to rescind what I previously said then, Bill, because you've convinced me here. Because my first thought is he's not being manipulative. He's learned something new, and now he's setting a limit. But as you remind me of that comment, like maybe you're not ready to be a stepmother yet.
Yeah, right.
And now one of the things we don't find out when people write the unfortunate things, we don't find out what she said before he said that.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
Did he say like, did she say to him, like, if you really loved me, you would accept my dog too? And he said, well, maybe you're not really, like, was this in the midst of an argument, and how did it come out? But as an isolated comment, that comment really feels manipulative. You're absolutely right. Like it feels like maybe you're not ready to be a stepmother yet. And I do want to be the fly on the wall that here's what preceded that comment. Because it might have been equally awful, but that's a pretty awful comment.
Yeah,
it really is.
I also wonder what level of influence the biological mother's having from the sidelines. You know, sometimes we talk about minor characters. So is she really upset about the exposure here? And in service of trying to maintain a long-term relationship with someone with whom you are no longer romantically attached to, right? You know, this parenting, and they've got what, another 9 years of having to figure out this relationship. Sometimes a biological parent may feel like they have to take a stand because they're between two people, and it's not just the daughter, but it might be the biological mom saying, hey, if you don't da 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 da, and she may be pulling some strings on the other side, and we just don't know. Right. We just don't know. It can happen. I'm not saying it does, but you know, if we massage facts, I can see that fitting in.
Oh yeah. And we do love to massage facts in these situations because we don't always have them. But I could totally see that. Like, you're bringing our daughter over where? Like, our daughter is coming, like,
how many times have you had someone in your office, like, right, that says, gosh, my former partner is saying these things to me, demanding that. And you know, we even write some of this stuff into divorce decrees.
Yeah. So if I shift gears, so like that was my human response. And so like if I shift gears to like the clinician response, so like I'll just quickly put on like a professionalism thing. Like for me, I would be really interested, kind of like to your point, both of you, like, so if we had a stenographer, like let's read back the language all the way leading up to this moment. I would be really interested in hearing how have other problems been solved by this couple. Kind of get thrown at each other. Like, what does that history look like? Is this a once in a lifetime kind of moment for them, or is this a regular kind of event? And to me, just from a communications viewpoint, that would make really be interesting to see how these things flesh out. I'm sure this can't be the first rodeo for both of them to be in a situation like this.
What a wonderful question. What a wonderful question.
How do you resolve? I asked that and I didn't think about it in the situation.
What is your template for resolve? What is your template for resolving the really tough questions? How do you as a couple navigate those challenges when you have them in the past? Do they go unworked on? Do they get like why didn't I think of that?
That's why we have on as a guest to make
That is why. That is probably why.
3 heads. It's better than
I know.
A 3-headed monster. Now I don't know.
Yeah.
Some kind of therapy. Yeah.
So how? I mean, this one's a tough one to render a verdict.
Yeah.
Because there are so many deep emotions. It's quite possible that everyone here is being to some degree reasonable and maybe said some things they shouldn't have said. And this is a really tough problem to work out because you can't both have a dog and not have a dog, and you can't have a daughter and not have a daughter. At the same time, there may have been some really horrible things said on multiple fronts here that exacerbated this. Some of the solutions that I think OP mentioned, just only have the daughter over, or some of the like only have the daughter over part
Keep cleaning and keeping the dog out of the daughter's room.
Yeah, only having the daughter during the day. Like as a parent,
those are really big concessions, honestly.
Yeah, I can't see myself being like, oh yeah, I just have my kid over for a few hours during the day and not like that wouldn't go with me as a parent.
Right. And rehoming the dog is not an absolutely unreasonable thing. It's just that the OP doesn't want to do it. I've certainly seen situations where people say, well, okay, I can no longer have this dog in my home. And so my father was gracious enough to take the animal so I can still visit. I still have parenting rights, as it were, to the dog. But, OP doesn't want to give up that dog to anyone, which then we have to just respect.
Certainly we've all...
the daughter, right? I mean, they're almost the same age.
Fair. Yeah. It'd be interesting to hear what the relationship between the dog and the daughter is. Just because a child is allergic doesn't mean they don't want to love them and hug them and have them forever. So
yeah.
I wonder how the daughter feels about this.
We've all worked with people who are grieving the loss of a pet. And we hear this comment. I've heard this comment many times, like, not that they don't love the pet more than their parents. Okay. I'm not saying that, but people sometimes say this is harder for me than when I lost a human loved one.
That's right.
No, I certainly wouldn't have chosen the, but like when my parent died, they weren't in my life day in and day out.
Right.
And they'd been very ill for a while.
In the same way the dog was.
But the dog is there every single day. And this is like emotionally harder. I've heard people say this is emotionally harder for me than it was when I lost this other loved one who's a human. So I think it's really, really, I wouldn't want to underestimate the power of a pet that a person is very close to and who's help them through really tough times. They're been a constant companion.
Yeah,
this one's tough.
Are we ready to render some verdict, or is the verdict there is no verdict?
I just want to say really quickly, so just as therapists, like all three of us know how easy it is to have a problem like this come across our plate. And then we have a what, kind of moment where we like, how dare he say that? And so I just so value both of your opinions, kind of just walking back and doing the hard job of seeing the other perspective and just making sure we don't have that initial human response, like get rid of that guy.
Well, yeah. I mean, definitely don't want that in your clinical office. But I, in my training, and Dan and I have talked about this, is it's okay to be a human in the therapist's office. Like, and my human response wouldn't be like, tell the guy to take a hike, but I certainly would be a human and go, oh my gosh, like, wow, that's really hard. I'm sorry that this has become an issue for you, and happy to work on this. But like, I think my initial surprise and maybe a little bit aghast might come through without telling her what to do for sure. So
the level of complexity here is one that I am holding open the possibility that OP is a total asshole and has handled this really badly. And I'm holding open the possibility that OP has handled this incredibly well and is doing it perfectly, and vice versa. Like, I don't feel like I can say one way or the other on this one.
So not enough information for Kessler.
I don't feel, for me, there's not enough information because we just don't know all the conversation that led up to. Certainly, I can say definitively that this couple is not necessarily working great together on this problem, and at least one of them has said some pretty awful things to the other. I don't know if both of them have or not. So there's a problem here, but that problem sounds like it's a relationship issue, not that someone's an asshole. Although it is quite possible that one of them is, and that we just don't have enough information here. Other thoughts?
The probability of someone sucking here is not zero.
It's
That is true. There's room for growth, right?
Yeah.
That's where my verdict is.
Yeah.
In fact, I would say, interestingly, I mean, there were different people on the internet who said various things, but the general consensus was, in fact, everybody sucks here. So the internet was very happy to point a finger at everybody except for the dog and the stepdaughter. They were very clear to like, those two are out. But this comment basically is kind of the gist of what everybody on the internet was saying, which is, what the fuck did you guys think was going to happen? Did you plan out anything at all? Why would you date, let alone get engaged to, let alone let a man move into your house with a daughter who's severely allergic to your furry family member? Why would he date and get engaged to a woman with a dog while his child is severely allergic? Did the two of you discuss this? Why did you just move forward without having that important conversation? All these compromises you mentioned are naive at best, perhaps delusional. The girl cannot be around the dog, period. They are two mutually exclusive things. Same for him thinking that you can just give up the dog. Delusional. Pick the dog and learn to think better about who you date and get engaged to. What the fuck? For fuck's sake.
No, I'm gonna render that commenter just dickish. Come on.
Yeah.
It's okay that you didn't know. Now, the thing I agree with is that in these situations, typically you're having a number of overnights, and before you move in, you're very often in this alignment of spending a lot of time at the house that you're moving into. And one would think that the daughter would come and we would have seen this issue. But I'm not at the level of that summary or poster. I think that poster might be overstepping just a little.
I'll agree with the whole point of the naivety of, didn't you talk about these things already? Like, that part resonates with me. Like, communication is so fundamental.
It is. The other thing that I think about is that sometimes the reality of a thing is so different than the fantasy of the thing. And we like don't know how it's going to be until we're actually there. And when you add in the early phases of a relationship and the new relationship energy that can cloud our judgment, I can totally see this couple thinking, we'll work that out. We'll work that out. Like it'll be fine. We love each other. It's really terrific. In those early phases of a relationship, human beings don't think clearly.
I see that with money, faith, children, like all those things. Yeah.
I could totally see. And I think that where these folks may have made the mistake is before the relationship started, for dad to have in mind, like, I can't date someone who has a dog because that would harm like that.
Again,
because he didn't.
They didn't know the level of the allergy until she's exposed for a prolonged period of time.
Okay, so I'll give him that.
According to the post.
All right, so now we know for future relationships for him that he should just rule out anyone who, and I don't think that's unreasonable to say, I'm like, I just can't date someone who lives with a dog because my kid's allergic. I could totally see this couple finding themselves in this situation. So I'm going to disagree with the vehemence with which that person responded. Because I could totally see this happening and people just not realizing that it's that big a deal.
I would love to see these two adults. At least one of them has been around the block maybe not, obviously. I'm going to take that back. I'm going to walk that comment backward. Two adults here in their mid to late 30s. I hope you would have enough experience in the world to realize maybe we don't have to get married today. We can continue in a deeply committed relationship. We can live in separate homes, which will protect the daughter. We don't have to get married. We can stay in. You don't like it. That's fine. You just
like it,
Kessler.
No,
and you stay in and people do it, and it works fine. And then once the daughter maybe has left the home and isn't routinely living with them, then maybe they choose to get married. It's not ideal, but it's a way to move forward in a relationship and keep the relationship without telling one or the other to take a hike. And honoring the daughter's allergy.
I'm going to respectfully disagree with you. I think that I think when people get into or seeking a relationship, they're often seeking a partner to share their lives with in a deeper way than.
They can continue to do sleepovers. She can go to his place.
Share their lives together in a way that they are sharing their lives on the daily together in the same home.
There are lots of circumstances that prevent that. Sometimes it's work or some other factor that keeps you in separate households for a long period of time.
We've talked about this in previous podcasts. Sometimes, we can say that's a reasonable thing, but someone might say, for my relationship, that's not something I'm willing to do. I'm not willing to have a relationship that's part-time. I want a full-time relationship or no. And that's not an unreasonable thing to say.
It's a personality
I'm just throwing it out there as an option.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Bill, go ahead. We over talked to you. Sorry.
Oh, no, that's all right. I agree with both of you, but like it has to be a personality match. Like you can't, obviously, Gail, I don't hear you prescribing that to this couple, but these are options. And so like we just wonder, like there's that authoritative like shape up or ship out kind of thing that we think we heard coming from one side to the other, and we don't know how balanced that may be. But if have they worked through all of the different permutations? If they're important enough to each other, have they considered those things? And I appreciate, Gail, what you're saying is, can you work through those? And they may have the personalities that this just is not it.
Sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, I think sometimes our job is to bring lots of different creative ideas
Yeah.
and then evaluate them, right? And
Yeah.
if the client says, no, that's really not going to work for me or for my partner, fine, right?
Oh,
But at least we have created an opportunity to step back from the emotional, shape up or ship out and think
yeah.
flexibly about this, and
Yeah.
then why this would or wouldn't work. What are the costs and the benefits of each of these potential solutions, and allowing someone to come to a conclusion on their own, or in this case,
Yeah.
hopefully together, come to an amenable conclusion.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
hear the echoes of a radical acceptance in there, like kind of accepting the
Yeah.
problem for what it is and
Mhm.
learning to
Yeah.
be flexible.
Yeah, frankly, I was thinking of the David Burns work and the CVA stuff, that cost benefit analysis.
Yeah.
So
What-
yeah,
what
I think
com-
we're influenced by a lot of therapists and creative ways to think about it. But I think that's our
Right.
charge, is to think creatively, and us to accept whatever the client decides is best for them. We don't walk in their shoes. We don't live their lives. We don't,
Mhm.
we don't really get involved in that way in their relationships. They have to make those decisions for themselves.
Yeah,
But
I think
sometimes they can't see an answer that might be really workable right in front of them.
what this brought to me a little bit was my previous training many years ago as a family mediator, and moving these folks in the mediation world. They talk about moving people from positions to interests. That these people have a position, both of them have a position. You can't have a dog and live with me. I have to have the dog, and you have to find the solution. So that's their position they've taken. But what's their interest? Well, their interests are living together, not harming the daughter, and not wanting to give up the dog. So or not wanting to take the dog out of my life. So is there looking at these interests, is there a solution that works for not a compromise, but a solution that allows everyone to win? Yeah. And if there's not, that's when they go, okay, there's not a solution. But to start from that position, to move away from this entrenched position of this has to be the way it is, and move towards what solutions can we find together as a couple as we navigate this? And getting back to Bill's question, like, how do you resolve the difficult things if they're resolvable? Yeah. So I'm going to disagree. I don't think everyone's shitty here. I don't think to say, if the internet says everyone sucks here, I don't agree with that, but I'm open to the possibility that that's true.
Yeah, right,
if we have more information.
Right. Yeah.
Well, can I throw in one other kind of comment? So it was a smaller contingent, but it did say not the asshole. And then this poster kind of encapsulated that idea, which was, I agree with Tim. It's time which is the fiance's name. It came out later in the post. It is time to rethink the wedding. He's not putting his child first over your dog. He is putting his child first over you. As a father, he's entitled to do that. He is not entitled to do the my way or the highway act. As a partner, you're free to evaluate it and the life you want in a marriage. The other way to look at this is to remove the conflict from the picture and look at his actions. He moved into your home. Now he is unilaterally making demands. That is a red flag. Additional concerns. This is not a good look for him either way. Here are some other scenarios. A dad who is so clueless he has no idea how bad his daughter's allergies are. A dad willing to disrupt his daughter's life by moving in with someone instead of having the OP move in with him and having that new environment be a hazard to her health. And 3, a partner willing to put his daughter's well-being at risk just to get his way. None of these are great. He's the asshole, not you.
I don't know enough to say that.
Yeah, I feel like there's some assumption there, a little strong.
But it's also possible. I mean,
the probability is greater than 0.
Yeah. The possibility is greater than 0. Yeah.
Great.
Thank you, Michael. Really, this was one that really brought up a lot of great conversation, and I appreciate your bringing this challenge to us.
Yeah, well, thank all three of you for another riveting debate and a glimpse into the collective conscience of the internet forums. Remember, morality is often, shades of gray and not just black or white.
And thank you, Bill, for reminding us that we are humans and therapists, and both
Mhm.
reactions belong in the room at times.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and we do certainly have those human reactions, and sometimes we govern them, and sometimes we use them.
Mm-hmm.
So I also appreciate that.
And thank you for having me. It's just so fun to be in this room and kind of imagine myself as like you guys as my therapist. And I so value your opinions. It's so amazing to hear like other people's ideas bouncing off when it's, you in your own all the time. It's awesome to have a three-headed monster, as it were. So
yeah, no, it was a lot of fun. And Michael was asking me a little bit about you. And I was like, oh yeah, I've known Bill a long time. And here's my metric. If I went to a conference, I would actively sit next to Bill at the conference. That's not always true for everybody. So
yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah.
I appreciate your professionalism and it's been great. Thanks.
Yeah, likewise. Definitely likewise.
Yeah, well, please follow and share Veritas Views and the podcast platforms, the neighbors and friends. And as always, stick around through the credits for whatever the bonus conversation will be. See you on the flip side of the credits.
You can follow Dr. Dan Kessler at Dr. Dan Kessler and Dr. Gayle MacBride at Dr. G. MacBride. Oh, and you can find them both at veritaspp.com. Credits. Tickling the Ivories, Matthew Reddington. Art, production, and design, bringing this show together with flair and finesse, Michelle Love. Recording and editing, turning chaos into something worth sharing, Michael MacBride. Intro, outro, I'm Kelly Buttrick, a VO talent who just happens to be Dr. MacBride's cousin. Cats, CJ, Linus, Sadie, and Griffin. Hosting by whomever lost the coin flip. Interruptions by all their children. The content of this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional mental health advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Listening to this podcast does not constitute a therapist-client relationship. If you believe you may be experiencing a mental health issue, please seek the assistance of a qualified mental health professional. If you are experiencing a mental health crisis, you can call or text 988 from anywhere in the U.S. to be connected to Crisis Mental Health Services.
Thanks for listening. As promised, here's that bonus conversation.
So for our bonus conversation, I would like to ask you some this or that questions. They're totally just kind of random things I came up with. I'm going to ask both Bill and Dan to weigh in. I'll probably alternate who goes first just to make sure that Dan also experiences the lovely white hot spotlight of the urgency of having to answer.
Yeah.
All right, Bill, I'm going to go with you first. This or that? Ping pong or pickleball?
Pickleball.
Ping pong. I never played pickleball. So
why not pick it up then?
Yeah.
Bill, do you play pickleball?
I don't, but I played tennis before, but it just feels more active than ping pong.
Oh, yeah. Well, you should come over sometime. We'll play ping pong. We'll see which is more active. Especially against our youngest son. Boy, he's a
I know. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Dan, mountains or desert?
Mountains.
Bill?
Mountains.
Mountains. Why mountains, guys?
Ooh, yeah, I would say it's a challenge to go up. I like going up things, and so desert is beautiful. I love deserts too, but I love the challenge of going up and then
I've hiked in both, and it found the mountain hike to be, I don't know,
more serene, peaceful.
You know what? Hey, here's the thing: is I've only ever hiked in a mountainous desert.
Oh, mm-hmm.
So how about mountainous desert? Because I have hiked in a mountainous desert before, and it was enjoyable, but I like the trees better. So there you go.
All right. My next one is inspired by our intrepid podcast host who, yes, you, Michael, who asked me to propose this one. And I thought it was a bit preposterous at first, but I want you to hang with me because the this or that is you have to choose to keep one.
Okay.
That's the premise. So this or that, do you choose mosquitoes or ticks?
Ticks.
Ticks.
Ticks?
Ticks.
Ticks
Yeah.
for both of you.
Absolutely.
Okay. I think that was Michael's the choice too, because they were more avoidable.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
You can manage those easier. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
you
tried
don't
to
have to worry
argue that
about if
mosquito
you're sitting,
seeds
you know,
about
if you're sitting on your
potatoes.
back deck in the early evening in the
Mhm.
summertime, you can avoid the ticks aren't bothering you.
Right,
As long as you don't get that kind that gives you the protein problem where you can't eat red meat anymore. Like,
Yeah,
so
that's problematic. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, let's see. Where are we at? Hummus or salsa?
Hummus.
Ooh, there's so many kinds of salsa and hummus. I'm going to say hummus.
Ooh, yes.
Yeah.
I love hummus.
Yeah.
Okay, one more. Oh, Dan, this is really, I'm going to serve this one to you first. I think I know what your answer is going to be. Za'atar or curry spice?
Za'atar.
Curry spice.
Yeah. And again,
Although
they're
they both
different
have,
kinds of curry.
they both have their place though.
They do. They
Yes.
do.
So
They
maybe
both
it's
bring
not
a
a good
very-
either or. They both have their place. But I have curry once every couple of weeks, and I have za'atar like almost
On the
every
days
day.
you don't have curry.
Almost every day, pretty much. Yeah. So
Well, thank you for playing along. It's
Thank you.
fantastic. I told you they were a little bit out there and random, but they're a great way to kind of get to know us on that human level.
Absolutely.
I always like it. Yeah, and honestly, the mosquito and tick thing, like I was thinking of, the inconveniences of ticks and certainly the problems that go along with them. But mosquitoes are mass murdering fuckheads. I mean, they kill like 1 million people a year.
They
So
do.
like, fuck those
They do.
guys. Like they need to
yeah,
go.
absolutely. Fuck those guys. I totally agree with you.
Well, thanks again for joining us, Bill. And thanks everyone for tuning in. Tune in again next week for a whole nother Am I the Asshole debate.
We love hearing from you, so please review us on Apple, Spotify, or, well, wherever you're listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, please review, like, and follow. Also, give it a share. This helps us reach more listeners.